Thomas! It's up for grabs now!
Magic ball from Bergkamp to Patrick Vieira!
Oh, would you believe it? Oh, right, what a way to get it!
Fabulous solo goal by Thierry Henry.
Champions.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Arsenal Lounge. A really, really pleasant one as well. Before we go into anything, I'm going to welcome the panelists as always. Before we do that, a big hello to Daryl, Pink Panther, Paul, the Visionites, Chan, Arslan, and a few more of you as you're coming in. And there we go. Obama Canton's in the house as well. So, first, Mo, how you doing, mate? Looking
very,
happy
very
with
good,
yourself
man.
at the moment.
Yeah, I'm very happy. It's been a crazy, very memorable weekend of football. So, you know, when you've got a podcast following a weekend like this, you're itching for it. You want to talk about it. And it's a nice change from some of the patchy form we've had in recent weeks. But do you know what? I really feel like we've steadied the ship big time now. But only kind of by the skin of our teeth. When you look back at some of our results, Villa could have gone either way.
Ooh.
Bournemouth could have gone either way.
We're losing you a bit there, Mo, for a sec. Oh, you're back. I don't know what happened to you there for a second. Yeah, you're back. So, yeah, you were saying?
Yeah, I don't know where I left you, but I was just saying
You were saying about the games, Bournemouth, the Villa game was that you could have gone either way. The Bournemouth game could have gone either way.
And then obviously Everton in between, just consummate ease, we went and won. But I feel like hopefully we just steadied the ship a little bit now. We can return to normal Arsenal this season, which has been quite consistent because the last few games have been like roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, I second that. Tom, we've had a bit of a dodgy start, a bit like Arsenal on the weekend, but hopefully we'll come back strong. How are you doing, my friend?
Sorry for the lateness. I literally got in from the office about half an hour ago and then had dinner and then was rushing to get back. So
that's all right, mate. That's all right. That's not a problem, bro. That's not a problem. But other than that, enjoy your dinner. Enjoy the weekend.
It's very nice. Yeah, I'd gnocchi, which was great. But what was even better was the weekend's football. So yeah, can't complain. Why are you feeling that face? What's wrong with gnocchi?
I'm just checking. Did you say gnocchi? You said gnocchi, yeah. All right,
gnocchi,
yeah.
All right.
Just checking. I thought you was letting us know some other things online, but that's fine. That's good. Gnocchi. Hope you liked it, mate. If you also enjoy your gnocchi, let us know. Put it in the chats. But look, guys, obviously there's loads to get through today. Did anyone actually watch the TalkSport Spurs fan call in Laura Woods? Did you see it, Tom?
Yeah,
Mo, you haven't watched it yet. You need to watch it. Hilarious. She absolutely ruins
Talk
him.
me through it.
He just like rings up, talking about how lucky we've been, which is the line now, you know, because they've got nothing. No, the Arsenal critics have nothing else. That's all they have is apparently we've been lucky, despite the fact that the PGMOL has to apologise to us twice for their poor officiating of costing us points in games. Despite that, we're apparently lucky. And Laura just turned around and said, like, the fact that, like, this is all you've got. Like, this is, like, all your life revolves around in your miserable season is just focusing on Arsenal. She destroyed him.
I mean, the lucky thing was the secondary. He started off with something to do about how we were celebrating, like, kids. And the Bournemouth had come back against, they came back against Bournemouth earlier on in the season. And, it was just, I don't know. To be honest with you, the only reason he actually called in was just because he was bitter. And that was it. He was just clutching at straws. So, Mo, when you get a Mo, watch it. And you guys in the chat, if you haven't seen it already, do so. But look, let's get straight into this. So, obviously, City had played on the weekend against Newcastle. They had a 12:30 kickoff. Obviously, they won the game. It wasn't as cut and dry as I had expected. I think if Newcastle were a little bit more clinical, they created some chances, but nevertheless, they secured the 3 points before our game at home against Bournemouth at 3 p.m. A seemingly straightforward game, as we all thought. Looking at the lineups, we started with Ramsdale in goal. We changed Tomiyasu came in for White, which was something we could discuss. Saliba, as usual, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Odegaard, Partey, and then Vieira came in for Xhaka. And then we had Saka, Trossard in that sort of floating 9, and Martinelli. Bournemouth had Neto in goal, Smith, Mepham, if you want to call it, Stevens, Senesi, Zamora, Otara. They had Rothwell, Billing, Semenyo, and Solanke. So, look, I mean, we thought this was going to be a routine game for us. And, lo and behold, kickoff. Now, the kickoff was a strange one before we go into it. They come up with some strange sort of, I don't know, distraction technique or whatever you want to call it. I've actually got a little clip of it here so we could have a look at it. Or do I? Yeah, I do. Here we go.
Are you going to get copyrighted if you play a clip?
No, I'm not playing the clip. It's just a
cool.
freeze frame. So this is how they started their kickoff. Now, Tom, before we go into what happened next, we know what happened next. This isn't a really bad version of Question of Sport. But some are suggesting that had they sort of pulled this back to the kickoff, players being in our half, the goal could have been disallowed. I don't know if that's clutching at straws. But anyway, they had a distraction technique. They kicked off like that. All these players ran down the middle. Dave then switched it out wide. Slow start. Cross comes in. I can't remember who actually crossed it in. You might be able to tell me, Tom. But was it Otara? Yep. And then it came off Gabriel's foot. Squeezed through somehow. And suddenly, 11 seconds, we're a goal down. Second fastest Premier League goal in history. So obviously now we're thinking 90 minutes. We've got loads of time still. We push on. We start to really press. There's loads of activity going on. There's loads of opportunities we'll go into as well. I mean, we can look at it. We had Odegaard had a strike. It was saved. And then rebound. Saka, Neto, another great save from that opportunity. Then they break away again and almost score. Now, not enough has been made of Ramsdale in this game for me. He saved us at crucial moments in this game, kept us in it. An amazing save it was. Was that from Otara as well? Because it was crossed in on the break.
It might, yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Now, also, in that moment as well, that's where Trossard got injured, by the way. He pulled his groin at that moment. So we go in at halftime, 1-0 down. We think we'll be all right. We'll come out second half, smack it up. And that doesn't happen. We start off on the front foot. And the 57th minute, boom, another goal. Senesi, this time Partey is at fault for letting Senesi get away from him. And suddenly it's all hands to pumps. But we know kind of what happened from there on. Partey really stepped it up second half. Equalised in the 62nd minute, then Ben White in the 70th minute, and we'll hold off on the Reece Nelson thing. But Tom, you was there, so let's start with you. You was at the game, right? You was actually you was there with Kaya, wasn't you?
Yeah, we were covering the game. It's the first game that I've obviously at home in the league that I've been able to get into, which was great. I mean, what a game to be allowed to go.
Yeah, you must have thought, it's only Bournemouth game.
I'll tell you what, we're in the press lounge before the game started, and we were going, how many goals are we off Man City's goal difference? Like that's the conversation we were having, which is obviously naive and ignorant of the opposition. We got absolutely rightly trounced for having those views before the game by Bournemouth. You know, the first goal is illegal by the letter of the law. Is
really? How so?
Basically, they had two players in our half when the ball was kicked off, which obviously you're not allowed to have. Now, I had a brief chat on social media with Dale Johnson, who runs the ESPN VAR review of the weekends. He does every Monday. He releases an entire article on ESPN overviewing every single VAR decision in the Premier League. A lot of work goes into it, and he does a fantastic job doing so. He covered it, but I had a little discrepancy with what he wrote in it, which was that he mentioned that Semenyo, who was really in our half when it kicked off, had nothing to do with the goal in any way, and it was immaterial what he said in relation to that. However, what he missed out is that Otara, who was the player that crossed the ball, is also infringing beyond the halfway line when the ball's kicked off. Now, VAR, I found out today, has no power whatsoever to go back to kickoffs, free kicks, throw-ins, anything like that, where a player is infringing on something like that. I saw a couple of articles saying that it was a VAR blunder. The reason why it's not a VAR blunder is because, as I've learned today, the VAR cannot get involved.
A VAR loophole, basically.
It's apparently, it's a bit of a loophole, and it can only be called out by the on-field officials. If that's the case. So I think it's ridiculous, because VAR can overrule goal line technology if it fails. It can overrule any on-field decision besides, it seems, kind of this. And the irony of all this is that when Lee Mason forgot to draw the lines for our goal against Brentford, that they literally couldn't have forgotten in this case, because there is a permanent line in the middle of the pitch, which gives you that immediate kind of reference point to know if a player is infringing. Now, what I will say is that if we'd have lost this game, or if we'd have drawn this game, a lot more would have been made about this. And I think it would have been more made about this because I think as fans, maybe not everybody, but I think the majority of us, we can be a bit biased towards our club sometimes.
No.
I think that if this was the other way around, I'd feel very hard done by if it was ruled out. And I think also what you've got to consider, and what I talked to a friend of mine about today, is that imagine a scenario where this happens and the ball doesn't go out of play for like 2 to 3 minutes, which can happen in games, as we know. And at the end of that 2 to 3 minutes, a team scores. And then what do we want to happen? Do we want to go all the way back to the start of the game where it first went into play and find out it was an illegal restart for when kind of the ball went into play? And I thought when that was suggested to me, you know what? That kind of makes a bit of sense. So in all, despite it being by the letter of the law an illegal goal that the VAR is not allowed to overrule, I'm not that bothered about it anymore. It is where I kind of sit on it. I feel like Mo's on the edge of his seats, willing to kind of pounce here.
Fair enough. I mean, personally, I wouldn't have even thought there was anything wrong with it. And I think it was innovative. I think it was, if anything, we should have been ready for that. So I can't. If we had lost that game down to that, I wouldn't have been pissed about that particular moment. But Mo, you was at the game as well, right? What was you thinking during all of this?
Well, on what Tom has just kind of outlined there, I actually was ready to have a little argument with Tom, because I personally do not care at all that they were in our half. It's not that the goal was scored because of that, few inches that they stole. They didn't sprint after kickoff. It doesn't take 9.11 seconds to get from the halfway line to the position that they scored the goal in. They timed their run. So it's not that they gained an advantage from that led them to scoring the goal. We had plenty of opportunity to do the right thing. If we didn't back off, and if we didn't let that cross come in, if Gabriel hadn't let it scrape his studs, if Saliba had been a bit more on the ball with his marking, they wouldn't have scored that goal. So for me, that's like such a tiny, tiny infraction that I think it would have been ridiculous to go back and rule it out. And you imagine if an Arsenal player is 9.5 yards away from a free kick rather than 10 yards, for example, and, it gets retaken because of that, and then they go and score from that retake, I'd be saying, come on, don't be bloody ridiculous about this. Football, I think one thing that we forget, throughout a 90 minutes of football, every single player is trying to con every other opposition player and every official for a throw-on, for a corner, for a foul. It goes on and on and on. A ball will come off someone's foot, go off the pitch, and you'll put your hand up as a reflex and try and claim the throw-on. That's just football. That's just football. If I do it, everyone does it. When I play at very low level, when people play at an elite level, everyone does it. It's just football. And I think you need to be a bit sensible about what infractions you're going to pull up and what you're not going to pull up. If the shoe was on the other foot and Arsenal had a goal disallowed for that, I'd be absolutely livid. But, asking VAR to get involved with this tells me that people don't understand VAR, because the one thing that people forget about VAR is that there's like a rule, I think it's like 74.36, that no VAR decision can be overturned to benefit Arsenal. It's a really niche rule in the rule book, but, that's what it is. So we're never going to get it.
Fair enough, fair enough. And there's plenty of little incidents that we could discuss with regards to VAR in a bit. But obviously, that was the first goal. Now, I actually listened to the Arseblog podcast earlier on. Quality bit of audio to listen to, when you want a bit more in-depth sort of analysis of the game and a little bit of banter, etc. And they come up with a fair point as well, which was, someone in the chat has said it as well. It's the fine lines, isn't it? Because if we had won the toss and we kicked off, totally different game. That early goal, changed the whole course of the game. It changed our mentality. Maybe we panicked a lot more. They were catching us on the break a few times because of that early goal. But I mean, what do you think went wrong, guys? Do you think we took it too easy? Do you think they just that early goal really just shocked us and sort of shell shocked us a little bit? Points where.
Firstly, Arteta actually said after the game that we conceded from a move that we knew we got.
You got.
Do you know your picture? You
just disappeared a sec there again, Mo. We got you.
You're doing this robot thing, so can you just tell us that bit again because we didn't hear it?
Sure. So Arteta said after the game that we conceded a goal from a move that we knew they could do. So this was on our radar. And in the picture that you showed, actually, you had one player set kickoff. Oh, for God's sake! Am I breaking up again?
You keep going.
But every time you stop, it comes back.
Right. Okay. So anyway, we can talk about, if we had kickoff or if this or if that. And actually, I get frustrated with that. I think there should be a bit more ownership. Saka had an opportunity 4 minutes later and, perhaps should do better. He could have squared it or, do a bit better. Should score, yeah. So, I'd rather honestly focus on that. I'd rather focus on that and focus on the fact that, look, Thomas Partey, the way he lost his marker for the second goal that we conceded, how poor we were on the counter-attack, giving Bournemouth an opportunity to score more goals in the game. At one point, Saliba played a hooked pass blind over his shoulder. Yeah. What on earth are you doing with that? At this level of football, you do not see players playing blind passes like that. Very, very infrequently. And if they do, they're always up in the air because it gives you a bit of time. Otherwise, you always play the way you're facing. It only takes 2 seconds for Saliba to play that to Ramsdale and Ramsdale to kick it back up the pitch. You don't lose any time playing it backwards. And I think in English football, we've got used to that now. You don't need to punt it forward all the time. You don't need to do stupid things. Just retain possession of the ball and recycle it. So there were so many other things that we can focus on that I think it's actually a bit of a wasted conversation to say, if we had kickoff, The reality is we may well, when we win the toss at home, we let the other team take kickoff because we want to shoot into the North Bank second half. Yeah. And if we had kickoff, it might be because they had won the toss and chosen to disrupt that. Would we have won the game if we weren't shooting into the North Bank? The team prefer that. That's what they used to. That North Bank sucked that goal in. So, there's various different ways of looking at it.
No, that's a fair point. So, look, after that first goal, not long after the breakaway we discussed a little bit earlier, where Ramsdale made a ridiculous point-blank save. He kept us in the game. 22nd minute, Trossard comes off injured. Not sure how long-term that is. Hopefully, we can ask Tom in a little bit if he's heard anything. Smith Rowe comes in. We're still pushing hard. Now, there's a few things the first incident I wanted to discuss with you as well. So, look, there was the first handball here. Now, this hits the top of the arm. They're saying it's the T-shirt. This is at the 33rd minute when we're pushing for a goal. Now, in my time, as playing football, all the years I've played, that's a handball. But with the new rules and regs coming in with the T-shirt rule and all that, that's not a handball. How do you guys see that? Do you see that as definitely not a handball?
I think you summed it up. In what I would call a handball, I think it's handball. But by the letter of the law, it's not. And so we just kind of have to deal with that. I think the rule is what's the issue. I don't know how they've come up with the idea of the shirt sleeve being the cutoff point because I mean, some shirts have different length sleeves, so it suddenly changes the rule depending on what kind of sleeve you're wearing. So, yeah, I think it's a bit mad. For me, I think you have to use your common sense as an official in that, because as he jumps, he's misjudged his jump, and then because he's going to miss the contact with his head, he's brought his arm up to make contact with it. So, in my opinion, that should be a handball, but by the letter of the law, it's not, and it's a frustration.
It is a frustration.
I think there's some images that you look at. You haven't actually even picked out the most damning image. There was another one that looks like, how the hell can it not be given? But you can never trust a still image. And actually, when I watch it in real time, I didn't think it was a handball. But when I look at the image, I'm like, bloody hell, it looks like a handball. So I think I have to go with watching the actual real-time footage. And for some reason, I just didn't feel like it was a handball. It felt like it hit him higher up, and almost feel like the still image is bit of an illusion in a sense. It didn't look that bad when you watch the footage.
No, I mean, look, I was screaming handball at the top of my voice when I saw that, and
same.
you know, I keep forgetting about this ridiculousness about a t-shirt and the sleeve, the cut-off point of a sleeve. I don't understand that. The way I've always been taught with football is the shoulder is your cut-off point. Anything below that is handball, but it is what it is. And then obviously we're still pressing. Now this is one I didn't see, and no one seems to make head or tail of this, whether it was or wasn't. But this Tomiyasu challenge,
this is a blatant penalty.
I never saw this in real time, so I never went mad about it. But when you look at it again, now I think who's the referee that does the for Sky Sports? He suggested that it wasn't
Gallagher. Yeah, not Paul Gallagher. Is it who's his first?
Dermot Gallagher. Yeah. Now Dermot Gallagher's reviewed this. He reviewed the first clip I showed, the handball, said it wasn't. He reviewed this one, said it's difficult to tell who hits who, so then it's not an obvious error. What's your take on this? And did you guys see it when it happened?
It's right in front of the press box. So like I saw it in real time right in front of me, and I was like, oh, that could get reviewed as a penalty. But it barely got a look in. Like it was barely checked at all. I have the benefit of having the television in front of me when I'm in the ground, and that we got one replay of it, and that was it. Like they didn't check it from different angles. So when Dermot Gallagher was saying it's very difficult to know who's kicked it, I'm like, you've got the benefit of 1 million cameras inside this stadium. Why are we not going through every single angle to check who did indeed get the kick? Because if it is Tomiyasu, and to me, it looks as if Tomiyasu does get the ball first, and then I think is it Senesi that kicks through? Is it Stevens? Honestly, they blend together.
Think it was Stevens.
There's so many incidences. I don't know which one it was in each.
Yeah,
but Senesi looks like he kicks through the back of him, and I think it's as blatant a penalty as it could be, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, this one, I have to agree. The only thing that I heard was that Tomiyasu slipped. And again, we're looking at a still image. You can never trust still images. So that's the only plausible explanation I've heard for why it's not. But like Tom said, why has every single angle not been looked at? Is that not exactly what they did for Ben White's hand-holding of Danny Ward?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point.
Angle was looked at, and only one angle was the one that actually showed us what had happened. So, and this is what I mean about this hidden rule in VAR, in the VAR rule book, that no VAR decision can be given for the benefit of Arsenal, because how many bloody VAR calls were there in this game alone? And it just was like, bloody hell, we're never going to get one. This one is, again, just doesn't make sense. Should have been looked at, and if it's gone through the back of Tomiyasu, whoever soft it is, that's a foul. If obviously Tomiyasu has slipped, fine. Someone in the comments can let me know if they think that was the case. But to me, looked a bit dodgy.
Well, I mean, I've watched it back a couple of times, and it looks like he's taken out. I mean, obviously, we're pushing really hard in this first half, and I think it was 85% possession in that first half, 13 attempts on goal. It was crazy that we were behind. But anyway, we went in at halftime behind. We're coming out second half. Arteta's going to give him a massive, massive kick up the backside, and we're going to come out all guns blazing. That's what we were all expecting. I'm sure you guys were. And that's what was happening. I think it's 55th minute, Neto with another save. Comes off his line, stops Martinelli. We're looking like we're going to do some bits again. And then the second goal goes in. Now tell me how you guys felt with the second goal. You must have thought this is one of those days. Tom?
Yeah.
What was it like in the ground as well? Because I wasn't there.
Oh, mate, it went silent. It went completely silent, other than the Bournemouth fans celebrating. But it was as if, I remember the famous quote from Thierry Henry when we played Liverpool at home in that invincible season, where he felt like the breath had been taken out of Highbury. When that goal went in, it felt like the air had left the Emirates from the Arsenal fans. But that was only for a few seconds. It went really quiet, and then gradually supporters started standing up, clapping, and saying, "Look, there's loads of time left in this game, and we know how good we are, and we know that we can go and do this." So once again, we did see a reaction and a response, just like we did after the first goal. It was more virulent during the first goal because of how early it was in the game, but in this goal, it was good to see kind of the crowd react to it. Yeah. It's awful defending from us from this corner. Thomas Partey is really at fault during this one.
He is
completely. There is arguments of, like you just mentioned with the Ben White situation in that Leicester game, of how much hand-holding had ruled out the goal. There's a lot of hand-holding and physicality going on in the box. There's arguable fouls if you're going on the level of Ben White's contact all around the box from Bournemouth players. But for me, I think it's bad defending and a good header and a good goal. I don't really want to see corners ruled out for that type of manhandling around that, situation. If it was the other way around, I'd think it was a good goal from Arsenal.
And also, you can't compare this to the Ben White thing because that was on the keeper, and the keeper plays the ball with his hand. So when you're doing that to an outfield player, it's very, very different. But let's just also say Thomas Partey, how immense was he in the second half? I didn't realize during the game that he had lost his man on the corner.
Yeah.
But I realized when I watched it back. And I kind of said in my match reaction that Thomas Partey at half-time obviously had a word with himself and came out a different animal. But actually, maybe it was that.
Well, you could see he was disappointed in that clip because he could see he knows it's his fault.
Yeah. And God, the way he responded, incredible. We've just seen an ex-great club go a couple goals down and then absolutely capitulate, and their players acting like drama, like prima donnas. And
who are you talking about, Mo?
I don't know. People call them United, but it wasn't West Ham, wasn't Newcastle.
No, they're the other title challengers, aren't they?
Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah,
them
but anyway,
yeah.
They Thomas Partey, his reaction and the entire team's reaction was just absolutely sensational. And don't get me wrong, Anfield is a completely different proposition. I realise that. Much easier to hide at Anfield than at your own ground with 60,000 your own fans. But I loved Thomas Partey saying, "No, I'm not going to have a bad game today. I'm not going to let this be the story of my 90 minutes." And how well did he do for the second goal? After scoring the first, he, with the little feint and then got a lucky break, but then recovered possession, regained his composure, played a brilliant pass to Reece Nelson that actually took out Bournemouth's right back out. The pass was so good. It kind of tempted the right back out and gave Reece Nelson that ability to, on his first touch, to kind of have that gap to play the ball in. And then what a pass. Thomas Partey was sensational. So he deserves a lot of credit. And like you've said, Aaron Ramsdale, that save, unbelievable. Do you know that chance that Atara had, that got saved by Ramsdale, there was no chance in the game with a higher XG than that. So that just tells you
again.
Oh, you lot love an XG story, don't you? Just like, oh.
But look, that's how brilliant of a chance it was, and the odds were stacked against Ramsdale saving that. It was just unbelievable. It's like in that moment he took responsibility. That
he did.
Crap, we're 1-0 down. You're not allowed to score this. I'm just not letting you score this, and made himself like 10 times the size. And you know what I really liked? Sitting in the North Bank, like I love the North Bank because I've always felt from my days as like a 13-year-old being in the North Bank, there's something special about that part of the stadium. The fans are really, really connected with the players. We don't really get on their back. We stand the whole game. We have been doing that for years and years and years. Once in a season, stewards, I think they get told, make them sit down. And we're like, what the hell are you doing? Every other game we stand. And the amount of love we gave Aaron Ramsdale, players generally during games, they don't really respond. They kind of like their focus. He couldn't ignore it. He had to clap us multiple times because we were just going on and on at him because we saw he just gave everything in that moment. And without that, would we have made the comeback? We would have been 3-0 down. had they scored the corner after. Obviously, the game can go a different way, but just kind of a simplistic analysis, that was a dead cert goal. 3-0 down, there's no coming back from. But when Bournemouth scored the first, I thought, they've scored early. We've got this. We will score at home. When they scored the second, I thought, it's fine. We will still definitely score, and then it's all about how Bournemouth react. And when I saw the pattern of the game, honestly, I know it sounds crazy, and my reaction would suggest I'm lying, but honestly, I back Arsenal, especially at home, to make it happen. And hey, we did it. I still went ballistic though.
Isn't it funny how things change? Because if you think about if we went 2 goals down against Bournemouth, say 2 seasons ago or a season and a half ago, what those fans would have been doing. But you see the fans are backing the team, and the players are also messaging the fans to get the energy up, and they're all working together in this. And like I wasn't even there, and I could feel it from where I was. So it must have been brilliant. I mean, for different reasons, the Everton game, it was madness. I was at that game. It was brilliant atmosphere. But the way the players and the fans are working together at this moment in time is excellent. Now, did you want to say anything about the XG thing, Tom?
No, not really. Just kind of on the idea about, we knew that we'd turn it around. I know we're going to get onto the goals specifically, but like, this is the 5th game now that we've turned around after going the first goal down. And, prior to this, I think it was only that Wolves game last season where we managed to do that. And that kind of shows you the mettle that we've got now, the belief, the never say die attitude. It's also the 3rd goal in the 90th minute plus in this year in 2023 that we've scored to get us a winner. It shows that this team is just never done. Like it doesn't die. And to win a title, that's the type of mettle you need.
Now we've got obviously Partey equalised. Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, we equalised. Was it ESR headed it to Thomas Partey, didn't he, when we equalised? Now, obviously, not long after, I think it was 68th or 69th minute, ESR actually came off for Reece Nelson, and that's quite a brave decision. We were concerned that it was an ESR reaction to an injury, but apparently the intensity of the game, it was a bit much for him coming back from an injury. Now, obviously, Reece had an impact. Now, before we go into that impact, there were some other incidences I wanted to bring up as well. So there was this incident. Now, this one I think really wasn't even looked at. Saka's cross in. Now, when it first happened, I didn't even think twice. It hit the post. I'm like, oh, right. But when you look at it again, is it Stevens? Yeah, it's Jack Stevens. Yeah, he puts his arm out to stop that ball going across to Reece Nelson in the box. And it hits his arm, which shouldn't be out there, and hits the post. Now, why do you guys think this wasn't looked at as an actual handball?
Where it is on the arm, it's on the sleeve where it hits him. And so they've decided it's too high.
But also, that's like fairly natural silhouette.
You think so?
The thing with this one, Mo, is the argument is that he goes towards it with his arm. But the example that Dale Johnson used on ESPN is that Roman Freuler did the same thing earlier this season for Forest, and that wasn't given as a penalty as well, because it's deemed that where it hits on the arm is, again, above the sleeve, even though he goes to it. Again, I agree with you, Lev, that this should be handball. Like, in my opinion,
he's stopping the ball getting through to somebody.
Yeah, with his arm, he's going towards the ball with his arm. No matter where it's hit him on his arm, it's his arm. And I think if you're using your arm to extend your silhouette, which he is, he's not going in like with his arm here. You see this with the still image again. He's doing it with his arm slightly away from his body.
Yeah, he is.
The thing is, I look at that and there's no like right angle to the arm or anything like that, or the arm's not up. So I feel like maybe he gets away with it because of that, because it's still arm is down, but albeit slightly away from the body. I don't know.
If you look at it in real, like in an action, it looks worse than it does with the still. But before we go any further, Cliff, thank you for your support, bro. He says, scream so hard, I thought I was going to have an aneurysm. Please don't do that, Cliff. Still early doors, but enjoying the ride. Celebrate when it's done and dusted. Well, it's not early doors. There's 12 games to go. I wouldn't say that's early doors now. We're in the sort of almost in the final stretch. But not long after, as I said, Reece Nelson came on. He had an impact. It was something that you touched upon in the past, I think, Tom. when teams sit with us in a low block, one of the arguments was using Tierney because he overlaps and he gives you width. So suddenly you've put on a natural winger. We start looking a little bit more dangerous and we're causing more problems. And Reece Nelson gets a cross in from the left-hand side, and Ben White, of all people, the other substitute, coming on for Tomiyasu. I didn't even know it had gone over the line. I was screaming. I was thinking it's going to be one of those games, But, lo and behold, it's a goal. And technology actually worked in our favour. So, I mean, it's 2-2, all to play for. Now, there is some other scenarios. Now, obviously, that one
you really like these scenarios, don't you?
I do like these, mate. How many do you get in one game? It's insane. Only Arsenal it could happen to. But apparently, according to Dan, the Spurs fan that called in from on TalkSport today, we're lucky. But anyway, this one. Now, I will say this. I don't think this is a penalty, right? And I don't think it's a handball. But, I mean, it's another handball in the box. Now, this time it's not a shirt, sleeve issue, but it's a bit close. What do you guys have to say on that?
It's proximity.
Yeah, in front of his body anyway. So
there's no getting away from that. So that one for me, I would have been, if it was my team, I would have been miffed. Now, obviously, we're pushing for this goal. It's not looking like it's coming. And I'm not used to, it's been a long time since I've seen Arsenal get a last-minute goal. That matters, really matters. Like,
Villa?
Yeah, but in the sense, I know Villa, okay, you could say that. But, this one had a different feel about it.
Yeah,
this one almost had, I won't say 89 feel about it, but I had that reaction. I don't know what it was that resonated with this one.
I think, Lev, it's because two things. Firstly, it wasn't last minute; it was last second. Literally last second.
It was their time wasted that took it to that as well.
And Man City had won earlier. So I think there was a lot to it. But I wonder, did we concede closer to the start or score the winner closer to the end? It was just crazy when you look at how long we led in that game for, and then we go and take the 3 points. Just absolutely crazy.
Now, obviously, Reece Nelson is not the person you would have thought would be the hero in this scenario, right? Final cross, I remember, it's Odegaard takes the cross, doesn't he? Odegaard hits the cross. Now, was it a head? He was a header out. I can't remember who headed it. Yeah, headed out. Goes
I don't know who it was.
It might have been. He was involved in everything by the sounds of it. But now I've watched this clip over and over again. Now, when it comes to Reece, he actually touches it with his right foot first and shifts it to the left. I don't know if it's instinctive, but the way he does it all in one movement is ridiculous. And that strike, when he hit... Now, I'm not going to lie, we were streaming it because obviously it wasn't live. My son was in one room streaming it because he was chatting to his mates, as boys his age do. And I turned it up because his stream was about a second ahead of mine. So I've turned it up. And with seconds to go, I swore I could hear something, but I wasn't sure. And I'm just thinking maybe it's because it's the end of the game and he's gone mad because he's got similar temper to mine. But then suddenly you see this ball just arrow into the corner and I absolutely lost it. I threw everything off. I was flying around. I was screaming my head off. What was it like for you guys in the ground? Because that is, I mean, Mo, he put a message in the WhatsApp group in the morning saying there's potentially 2 tickets, right? And I didn't even see it. And I lost my mind. I was like, oh my God, this game would have been one to go to. So what was it like in that ground? And
honestly, I don't know if I've ever had a more fun experience in that ground. Like that 30 seconds or whatever it was, like, was just mental. Absolutely mental. Even Leicester, when, the Danny Welbeck goal, this was just something else. It really, really was. I was like, I ended up in a different row for a start. I was like vigorously, aggressively shaking and grabbing people. It was just mental. I cannot explain how berserk everyone went. It was crazy. And it was just amazing. Like, I just, is moments like that's why you go to football. I often say to people, think about how many seconds in a game you're truly enjoying yourself. It's hardly any time in a game are you truly enjoying yourself. Every attack that you have and every attack that they have is stressful because vast majority of your own attacks go wrong. They don't end up in goals, so there's some frustration. And the vast majority of attacks that the opposition have, you're slightly worried you're going to concede. And until you're about 3-0 up, you can't really relax. So you don't have that much time to enjoy yourself. And then at the times when you do enjoy yourself, not like flipping this. This was carnage. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll have a better moment this season. Even if we win the league and we win it on the last day against Wolves, for example, you'll see that coming. Do you know what I mean? So unless something crazy happens on the final day, I think this will be like maybe one of my highlights or the highlight of the season.
Well, these are the sort of moments you would have seen when City were winning the league and all that. Do you remember that time when I think it was Vincent Kompany struck that shot? It hit that. I mean, these are those moments that you will remember, and that's how it's starting to feel. And also, I think from a mental perspective, if Arsenal are 2 points up with City to come, or 3 points, only 3 points with City to come, there's that mental issue. But the 5 points seems to just give you that little bit of comfort, don't it? You know, I mean, mate, it was an amazing. Let us know in the chats what you guys were doing. And something I think I just seen in the chats actually by Mikey, who is spot on, by the way. And I know Tom mentioned this as well in one of his shows. No, it wasn't Mikey. It was another one. Someone mentioned in here that it was a tactic that basically where Reece Nelson was, because earlier on ESR was in that position as well when he got to the header. Yeah. So there seems to be a positional design there where we place these guys to.
What they would have done is that they would have assessed, gone through hundreds of clips of where corners get headed out and where the ball lands most often. And that's why they put the player in that zone. So it is absolutely and you asked about whether Nelson's was instinctual. If he touches that with his right foot and goes to the right, he's got 2 Bournemouth players ahead of him.
Yes, yeah.
Because he touches it to the left, he's in a space. So he's got the time to compose himself and strike. So I think it's absolutely it's instinctual and it's defined, and he's meant to be doing that.
It was a perfect touch as well, wasn't it?
Nelson actually said after the game that he just saw a Bournemouth player in his eye line and he actually wanted to take it on his right foot. But because he just saw someone in his eye line, he had to shift it onto his left and then bang. But my God, he made it look so calm. And Lev, I'm really, really glad that you mentioned the corner position, because we got 2 goals from sensible positioning. And it wasn't just ESR basically in exactly the same space as Reece Nelson. There was also someone on the other side. Can't remember who it was, but we're very intentional about that. And it honestly baffles me that opposition teams don't have one person in the D or around the D, just one man, not even trying to mark anyone, just to prevent, someone getting that clean strike. Even let's look at the disallowed Trossard goal, comes from the same place. Arsenal do this week in, week out. Positionally on corners, we've been very, very good this season. Nicholas Jova needs his flowers because this is all down to him. And I like Arsenal from corners now. We've seen some really good variations as well. In recent game, it was a near post to Saka and then played out to get the shot on. We've mixed it up quite a lot this season. I don't know where we rank in terms of scoring and conceding from corners. Obviously, we conceded against Bournemouth, but some serious work has gone into that.
Listen, I wanted to give Mikey the credit for reminding us as well. It was him that said it. By the way, that Reece goal was a team tactic. He stood there for 3 corners. Trossard stood there too. And that's bang on. So thank you for that contribution, guys. Right. So obviously we've won that game now and we've maintained the 5 points. He goes mayhem. Arteta goes absolute mad. Everyone's going mad. One of the things I loved the most was the celebrations. It shows you the unity of these players. Saliba absolutely lost it. In one of the, there's an Arabic clip of the goal. They decide to follow Saliba, who goes and kicks the corner.
Was every clip, wasn't it? I think.
No, there was a couple of different ones, but yeah, he just absolutely lost it. And you could see, if anyone's doubting whether Saliba wants to stay at this club right now, all you got to do is look at that clip, because he went absolutely mad. Reece went off in another way. Odegaard was on the floor. The still picture of it is amazing. It's great. I might actually put it in a frame if we win the league, because that moment is pivotal. But just the whole thing that we're looking at with this club right now and the fan base and the unity, it's something we haven't had for a long time. And the Emirates is finally starting to feel like home. We're starting to make moments there that people want to remember. If we can get a title under our belts, I think Emirates will finally be home for good, I think. But just crazy times. But look, obviously, after that game, there was some people saying we were lucky and all that. Now, this is a question I need to ask. A couple of questions first. Now, the first one is early goals we're conceding. You guys have mentioned that, you know, we're coming back from goals at the moment. At some point, you play against the better side, it's going to come back and bite us in the arse. We can't afford to do that against the likes of, I don't know, Liverpool or City that's coming. So do you see us maybe just taking our eye off the ball with the lesser teams? Do you think this is a good thing that has happened to us before we play these bigger teams in the bigger games? I mean, what's your take on that, firstly? Tom.
I kind of look for the Saturday game. I kind of ignore it because going 1-0 down in the first minute, I think game plan goes out the window at that point. Like, you are attacking more frivolously, more risky. We've just greater kind of we've kind of thrown caution to the wind because we need to get back into the game. So we're going to get hit on the counter. We're going to be vulnerable. There are going to be points where the other team get in. We can talk about the defending of the corner. I think that's the one thing you can look at from the game is we need to do better at defending corners because there's a number of set pieces we're unfortunately conceding a few from. We know that we can defend them well because we did it really well last season. So they just need to address that and revisit that. And I'm sure they are. I have no doubt in my mind that Nicholas Jover is going to be going over the footage day and night to try and work out what's going wrong, who needs to be talked to, who needs to address. But a team like us and a team that are top of the table that has so much possession and so much dominance, the only way opposition sides get you is on the counter. And it is categorically impossible to stop every attack. And there is going to be times where someone switches off for 30 seconds and someone does make a mistake because it's football and it's not perfect. And yes, we are conceding a few goals, but I think it's more to do with the pressure. I think the pressure is obviously increasing and that's starting to, I think, getting to the heads of the players a little bit. I think the dip that we had where we dropped the points against Brentford and Everton and Man City, I think that's obviously contributed to that as well. Because I think there's an element when you go into those games, or before we went into those games, of not of invincibility, but certainly confidence that we hadn't been bested. I think Leeds was the only game before those three games where I looked at a team and went, yeah, they bested us. I think we deserved to beat Man United when we lost. We deserved to beat Southampton when we drew. We deserved to beat Newcastle when we drew. But they bested us in that one game, and we got over that, and we got lucky. But then we obviously went on another run. The Everton game away from home was a real hit, and I've mentioned it before, being in Goodison Park and seeing how gutted the players were after that game, and I think that affected them. The Brentford game, the injustice of that game with the VAR, that then just compounds things, on top of the Everton disappointment. And then, of course, you get the reality check of Man City. You've made two big errors. You've given them 2 goals, arguably 3, and all of a sudden it's just compounding and compounding. So when we start to concede a couple of goals like we did against Villa, and we have to kind of really go late into games to get the win, I'm fine with it as long as we're winning. And I think that gradually what we've seen, especially in the Everton game that we dominated after about 35 or so minutes, but to be honest, we did manage to limit their chances on the whole. And the Leicester game that we dominated and just did not give them a sniff. I mean, 0.01 XG is ridiculous domination, to be honest, and pure control of a game. And then this game, I think, as I said at the start of the monologue, it's conceding in the first minute is just complete anomaly, and it's so mad. And it's obviously we could defend it better for sure in those first few moments. And Arteta will be going in, and it's the best example that could happen to us, because in every game going forward this season, you can be sure they're going to be on it more than they've ever been in the first minute to make sure that doesn't happen again. So again, I think it's fortunate that some things have happened to us in games we've managed to win, because we've managed to learn lessons in games that we've not dropped points in. And that, I think, is going to be absolutely crucial going into the rest of the season. So I'm not overanalyzing our defensive errors at the moment. I'm not saying I won't do if they start to creep up again. But I think we have addressed things in recent fixtures that we've won. And I think things have improved. So I'm not as concerned as maybe what some are at the moment.
Mo, question for you then. Obviously, when we're told historically over the years, or as a kid when I watched football, every season we're told champions, they're the teams that when they're losing, they pull it back from the brink, or when they're a couple of goals down, they find the heart to get themselves back in it, or they have a bad game, they still get the result. Now, I've heard that a lot, and I totally agree with it. I mean, I've seen Bournemouth. I think it was a couple of seasons back against Man City. Bournemouth were winning with a couple of minutes to go, and then City come back and then score in the last seconds, and everyone's lauding about City, etc. Why is it with Arsenal though? However, it's a different story in some senses. Oh, they were lucky, or this, that, and the other players are missing. What's going on with that?
Well, I mean, I personally think that narrative is starting to change. Like, I think you need to cherry pick who you listen to a little bit as well, because if you can listen to Adrian Durham's, Gary Neville's, etc., I just really, really wonder with people like that. I mean, actually, with Adrian Durham, I don't wonder at all, because that whole business model is clickbait.
Oh, yeah.
And the mugs, the Arsenal fans that fall for it, you're absolute mugs. When you see something like a headline, Arsenal are getting lucky with VAR this season, or crap like that, when you actually comment, do you not realise how foolish you are? How many other times you get mugged off every single day if you're that easy to reel in? And with Gary Neville, I think to myself, is this just a narrative that is good for Sky Sports? Or, when he's having a sensible conversation at home with someone or with a friend with no cameras, is he really saying all the crap that he's saying? Or is this just because anyone that watched, let's say, for example, Man United, Liverpool, and the analysis after that, it was box office. It was brilliant to watch because it was such nonsense. So actually, I don't know, Lev. I don't think people really are saying that, oh, it's just luck, this, that, the other. I think people do recognise that Arsenal are the real deal. Even if we don't win the league, we're going to be there or thereabouts. And we are a title challenging team. And it is just what it is. There's no other narrative than that's what we are. We are winning games that we don't play well in. We're getting these last minute goals because we are a really good team. We are really resilient, and we do let our quality show. We've got so much to play for. So, I don't buy into that narrative if you hear it from a real minority of people. Listen to the majority, and I think people rate Arsenal.
Good. I agree with you. Okay, so then look, obviously to add to the wonders of this weekend, Spurs lose to Wolves away. Chelsea do get their first win. But then, apparently, title challengers sneaking up on us with 2 games in hand. Going away to Anfield, where, let's be honest, Liverpool's form hasn't been the best. Spanked, not once, twice, 3 times, but 7-0. Now, what is going on with that? Because I'll tell you what, I found myself doing what a lot of the fans from yesteryear were doing when we were in a bad run. AFTV, Mo, you would know more than anyone. A lot of people were tuning in from opposing fans, were tuning in to take the piss. So I did the very same thing. I went on Goldbridge. I went on a guy from Football Terrace. I went on a few, and it was hilarious. But 7-0. What were your thoughts on that, guys? Talk to me. Tom.
I cannot stand the arrogance of Manchester United. Like, the arrogance around that club is just it's just unrivaled amongst supporter bases. Like, the entitlement that they have as a fan base to think that they are owed like titles across season. Look, I think there's something to be said about, clubs like Arsenal and Man United and Liverpool and Chelsea to a lesser extent, but certainly United, Arsenal and Liverpool, I think we can all agree are the 3 biggest clubs in England. But certainly United and Arsenal have been well below their historic par for a significant period of time. And that's because of horrific decision-making on a managerial level, on an executive level, on a recruitment level for so many years. And until this recent trend where Arsenal started to make some really good decisions and build themselves back up. The only reason why we're not sitting, where some of the biggest teams in the country, like Aston Villa, like Nottingham Forest, teams that have gone down and come back up, it's because we've had money available to us and we've had a foundation of a decent level of quality available to us throughout those years, and a very decent manager in Arsene Wenger throughout a long period that kept us at a certain level and stopped us from falling off, even though we made lots of mistakes. Manchester United are only where they are and have only not gone down to the lower end of the table because they have splurged a ridiculous amount of money, a stupid amount of money on transfer fees, on wages, on manager sackings, on just hiring whoever's out there that's got the biggest name, be it Jose Mourinho or Louis van Gaal. And they have been, I can't tell you how lucky Manchester United fans are that they are where they are as a club, because based on the decision making that they have had as a club, it's embarrassing. It's an embarrassment of an institution over the last 10 years, Manchester United, since Alex Ferguson left. And he must be furious with what has happened since he's left, because it's an embarrassment to Manchester United as an institution what's happened to that football club. And they are so lucky to be where they are. And so the arrogance of that fan base to suggest that they're even any hint of being in the title race this season is a joke, and it discredits what Arsenal and what Manchester City have done this season. I see Mo's like barely holding this in. I hate them, Mo. I hate them.
I think I found Tom's Achilles heel here. If
you thought you found it with Chelsea. You would have did that rant about Chelsea. I hate Chelsea.
He's usually so calm, and I'm just sitting here
I
like,
love it. Honestly,
carry on, Tom. Carry on, mate.
I just. And like Gary Neville, for instance, I used to have so much respect for Gary Neville's analysis and punditry and actually his defense of Arsenal. But he, like, so many others, and Mo has mentioned some, has fallen into the trap of being a clip, just someone that's really clippable for certain comments.
Is he, Tom, or has he just got a real hate for Arsenal?
I genuinely don't think he believes some of the stuff he's saying. And I think he's got to. And I think ultimately he's dug himself into a position, and there, there's always going to be part of me that in some sense has some sympathy because he's getting a shit ton of abuse from a lot of Arsenal fans that are giving. Look, there's one thing that Gary Neville hasn't done, and I might be wrong, and so people can show me some evidence if he has done, but he's never abused anyone. He's never crossed the line for me in terms of things he said to people. No, Jamie Carragher, I prefer his punditry, but look, he's someone who's crossed the line with the video that we all saw come out a few years ago. Gary Neville's never gone to that level, and so I have a level of sympathy for why he really doesn't particularly want to engage on an Arsenal level or be that kind of promoting towards Arsenal, because there are fans out there that have given him undue and his family abuse, and that's not okay. But what I've lost respect for is the fact that I think he's fallen into the trap of, he can no longer kind of turn around and say, I want, if it's not City, I want Arsenal to win it, which he used to say all the time. If it was between Liverpool, City and Arsenal, I want Arsenal to win it. Now he's kind of fallen into the trap of being the Man United guy. And no matter what, it has to be something to do with Manchester United, even if it's saying that Arsenal will finish third and Man United are going to finish second, which is it's just grown into a position where he can't dig himself out of that without looking so silly that he knows he's probably going to get even more stick online. So it's a shame, because I think it's a good pundit that's unfortunately crumbled into a position that a lot of, unfortunately, people do on the airwaves when you get that type of environment around you. So it's a shame. But yeah, I just fucking hate Man United, mate.
What did you watch the game, Tom? I was asking you about the game.
You stepped me off.
I'm joking.
They're terrible, mate.
I agree with you on that point. Yeah, when he first came in, I really was impressed with some of his tactical analysis and all of that. Mo, I'm sure you watched it. Did you see also Carragher and Souness really had him up in the studio, and he just wasn't backing down, was he?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? Actually, Carragher really laid off him. I thought it was
Souness went for him. Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like Carragher, it seemed to me, and maybe I'm wrong, it seemed like Carragher, almost like out of friendship, just didn't really twist the knife in on Gary Neville. Only spoke up quite infrequently because they must be friends. They obviously worked with each other so much. They must be friends at this point. But it didn't seem like Souness had any love lost. He even mentioned stuff that Neville said off
air. Yes.
Yeah, which I thought
he went in
like,
240 challenge. It was an equivalent of a 240 challenge. Yeah.
But I think the reality is, I think Gary Neville will be embarrassed when he watches that back and he sees the reaction on social media. I've been there where sometimes you can't help but get away from what a hell of a lot of people are saying on social media. And if it's just one or two, it doesn't really bother you. Even if it's like 10 or 20, it doesn't bother you. But when it's like hundreds or thousands, I think any objective person kind of looks at and says, okay, well, maybe numbers do speak volumes here, and maybe there is something to it if so many people are sharing that opinion. And yesterday, I didn't see a single person kind of defend Gary Neville there. Every single comment I saw in that was a case of Gary Neville's having a nightmare and this, that, the other. And, it's funny because he almost, he has said at one point to Carragher and Souness, like, you're acting like little children. And then he proceeded to call Jamie Carragher James. And he really, really was giving me those vibes.
That's when you know he was riled, yeah.
Yeah, he was really giving me those vibes, like, it's my ball, I'm going home type thing.
Yeah.
And look, in a way, I can sympathize with him on the basis that it's live TV and your team has just got battered by the one team you don't want it to happen. It is really often, even if you're not feeling like very humorous, you're better off dealing with it with a bit of a sense of humor. And he just failed to do that entirely. And I think he got it completely wrong. So he will be having like...
lost you there for a minute.
We lost
some
you, man.
serious, like, ridiculous. Am I... again.
No, he's back again. He's back. He stopped talking, so he's back again.
Back.
Very quickly, Perry, thank you, mate, for your support on this note. Gary Neville thinks we will bottle the title and finish third behind Man United, even though we are 14 points ahead of them, and United just lost 7-0. And that speaks volumes. And funny, you still get my mates and stuff who are still saying, oh, you're going to bottle it soon. Everyone's been saying that for months now. You're going to flop soon. It's going to happen soon. And they're all waiting for it. It hasn't happened. But moving forward, because we've only got about 10 minutes to go maximum. Obviously, we've got the Europa tie on Thursday, which is away to Lisbon, a 5:45 kickoff, I believe. Right. So very quickly, would like to hear your thoughts on that and what you think is going to happen with the lineups. And then we'll very quickly talk about, if we can do, the game coming up, because obviously looking at it from what I've realized, I think we've got another opportunity due to the fact that City are playing an FA Cup game when we're playing Fulham to go another 8 points clear and put the real pressure on. So starting with Tom, Lisbon away, 5:45 kickoff. What are you expecting to see? Because there's a lot of players. I think Kiwior's another one knocking on the door, wanting an opportunity. What do you expect to see in this lineup with the Europa in mind, and obviously with the Premier League coming up as well?
I still think we're going to go fairly strong. Reason being is I think Arteta's going to want to kill this in the first game, and so that we can return to the Emirates the following week and just kind of coast to whatever result needs to happen at the Emirates. I think he's going to want to win this 3 or so, but be 3 or so up going into the second leg. Sporting aren't the best side. They're not the side they were 2 years ago when they won the title. They've lost their best player this season because he went to Spurs. He was their most attacking threat. Obviously, Hector Bellerin's there, but we all know his deficiencies defensively. We should be able to get him behind. The backup to him, if they don't start him, is someone who has a very difficult Portuguese name to pronounce. So I'm not going to give it the best go. It begins with E, but it's like Esjiao or something like that. But he if he starts, is going to get ripped up by whoever's on that left-hand side, perhaps Nelson. I think it will be Nelson. I think if you want me to go through who I think it will be Turner. I think White will start this game. I think that Holding and Gabriel will start at the back. I think it will be Tierney at left back. I think Jorginho, Xhaka and Ødegaard will start. And I think Saka, Martinelli and Reece Nelson will be the front three. I don't think Smith Rowe will start based upon what we saw against Bournemouth. I think he'll come off the bench again. So that's what I think it'll be. But that's relatively strong considering what we could do. You could bring in Kiwior. You could bring in Vieira, stuff like that.
Okay, fair enough. And Mo, do you think that's going to be the same? Do you think the same as Tom on this matter?
I think it's a really difficult lineup to predict because, Arteta already tried to rotate in this game against Bournemouth. Now, did he do that because he wants to play a strong team in the Europa League, like Tom saying, to kill it off? Or did he rotate because the team needs rotation? If it's the first, then I think, yeah, we'll see that strong team. If it's the second, then I think we'll see like a very, very changed team. Very hard to guess. All I care about is that Reece Nelson has to play. If he doesn't play, I'm going to be so frustrated. He absolutely deserves that faith.
Are you in the camp that he should be offered a new contract, guys, by the way?
Well,
just based on that?
Not just based on that, based on something else. I think what a really interesting point is, and I mentioned this in my match reaction after the game, he's our most traditional winger in the team. And against a low block, very, very important that you have a winger that can say to his man, one-on-one, I'm going to hug that touchline. I'll do you one-on-one repeatedly, and I know how to put balls into the box that other people will score from. We don't have wingers. We have wide forwards. This is like a more modern way of playing football. You look at it, traditionally, you had wingers, and Reece Nelson is that throwback. And he was so much more effective than our wide forwards were in this sort of low block. So I think that's reminded me that we need that variation, and perhaps Reece Nelson needs a few more games. Instead of us saying chuck on Smith Rowe or Trossard or Martinelli, depending on who's on the bench, perhaps more often we need to say, all right, chuck on Reece Nelson. So, yeah, I would give him a new contract for that, not just because he came on and played brilliantly for 21 minutes.
Fair play. And you know what? Let's hope it comes good for him, because he was touted for massive things, Reece Nelson. He was ahead of the likes of the Sanchos of this world back in the day, and he sort of fell off with injuries, and maybe he just needs some game time without getting injured. Now, this is where I was going with this in a wishy-washy way earlier on. So Palace play Man City on the 11th, on the Saturday, at home, okay, and Man City travel there, and we have Fulham. But the next game, they have got the FA Cup tie on the 18th of March. And we have Palace, ironically, at home. And this could be crucial because, as I said earlier, it could give us the opportunity to go another 3 points clear. So suddenly your 8 point gap can appear again. From a mental perspective, that could be huge for us, right? But we've got... What did we predict for this game?
Just
coming
quickly,
up on the weekend. Go on.
And you know, I'm touching wood with this, but there's a genuinely real possibility that Arsenal go to Anfield with an 11-point lead at the top of the Premier League.
How do you work that out? So, what are you expecting us to do?
If Arsenal win their next 3 games, which is away to Fulham, at home to Palace, and at home to Leeds. And
the Fulham game is tough.
Sorry, the Fulham game is tough. Yeah, absolutely. If we come out of that game with a win, you got to be buzzing with that, because it's a great result. If Arsenal can win those 3 games, it means that City only have the chance to respond twice. One of those games, as you say, is away at Palace, which is not an easy game in itself, by the way.
No, it's not.
But let's say they win that. The next game is they host Liverpool.
Who
so
are
they play
on
Liverpool before. Yeah. So if Liverpool get a win at the Etihad, which is not an easy task, as we very well know, but based on the way Liverpool could be, you know, you never know, a bit back to some of their form, and they'll be very motivated to get that win.
The City have to come out at them, so they're open to the counter.
Absolutely. They have to win that game. So it won't be a case of like when they're playing them in the title race where they knew getting a draw, you know, avoiding losing was the best result for them. They have to win that game because they're chasing us. Then we beat Leeds. That's 9 points for us, just 3 points for them. And all of a sudden, it's 11 points going to Anfield, which I'm going to sit here right now and I'm going to say that's going to happen. That's my prediction, that I think we go to Anfield. I might be very wrong. I hope I'm not. But I think we might go to Anfield with an 11-point lead, and we'll see what happens.
Man, I hope you're right. I mean, honestly, you're right. If we can navigate through Fulham with 3 points, and the next 2 home games get 4 points there, it puts us in a real strong position. Plus, they're going to have the fixtures. I mean, yes, we've got Europa, but City are going to have to play their best teams against the Champions League sides, aren't they? Let's be honest. So,
if you want also an example of how quickly things can then change, we could then lose to Liverpool in the next game City could win and then win their game in hand, and we're back to 5 points. That's how quickly it changes. Like it's mad how quickly you can go and extend and compress.
If all of that happens, I'll take it. You know?
Oh, are you mad? Yeah, just to stay 5 points ahead after
round 5 points clear and less games to go. Because the Liverpool game is a massive risk for us, as is Man City. We need to avoid losing both of those games. Because
we need to go to Man City with a buffer of greater than 3 points. We have to make sure we go to the Etihad with more than 3 points between us and them.
But we just cannot afford to go away to Liverpool, away to Man City, and lose both. There's our 5-point lead gone.
Well, I've already predicted that we're gonna get a win away against City because we're gonna have hopefully Partey and Jesus in that game. So who knows? I mean, can anyone remember what we predicted for this game coming up on Saturday or Sunday?
I've got the predictions.
I knew I could trust Mo.
I predicted a 1-0 win. Tom predicted a 2-2 draw. Lev, you predicted a 1-1 draw.
I love that I've just said, oh, everything's going to happen, and I've predicted a 2-2 draw.
But you know what, Tom? I think we both agreed, if I'm not mistaken, that we did a batch of games, and we said there's probably going to be a draw in that. And we kind of thought, well, what's the most likely one? Probably Fulham. So we chucked in a draw there. And I went for the differential. Even though I agree, I think that it could well be a draw. I think 1-1 is a really likely scoreline. Look, they're playing Brentford right now, aren't they?
We need to win, don't we? I want us to win. We need to win. I know I've predicted 1-1, but in the grander scheme of things, I'm praying that I'm wrong. It's as simple as
Solomon's now scored, I think, in 5 successive games. He's been on fire, so he's one to look out for. Is
Mitrovic back as well?
He is, but Paulinho is not going to be available.
But Mitrovic is that sort of striker. Have they?
Brentford got a penalty. There you go.
Yeah,
you hear it live on the lounge.
And Tony's in my fantasy team, so this is very important, guys. I took a risk. He's in the team.
Albert J in the house is predicting we win 2-1. How you doing, Albert? 70% confident. He says, guys, we're going to wrap it up because I know that you guys have got things to do, and so have I. And Mo in particular has got nappies to change. It's his round, I believe. So on that note, Mo, anything else you'd like to add before we let you go?
Yeah, one crazy stat. In fact, there were so many crazy stats coming out of this game. But one crazy stat and one piece of trivia that no one will be able to answer, I don't think. But if you do, get in touch with me and I'll give you a prize. The crazy stat is that this was the first time that Arsenal have fielded a team where no player played under Arsene Wenger since his first appointment, God knows when, 1997.
It's been only up until now.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So at one point we played an XI there where no one had played under Arsene Wenger. And you know, Tom earlier mentioned that how we've managed to avoid becoming like a Villa or a Nottingham Forest. You know, I said when Arsene Wenger retired that we will benefit from the work that he has done for Arsenal Football Club for the next 100 years. It will be my children and their children that benefit from what Arsene Wenger has done. He made us truly a top club that has helped us ride this out. I'd say that there's more. I'd give more thanks to him if we win the league this season than I would the flipping Cronkies because of the juggernaut he made Arsenal become. Because we weren't when he arrived. We absolutely weren't. Pardon?
He scored. You'll be happy to know.
Oh, yes, get in there. So, yeah, that's a crazy stat. And one curiosity, I don't know the answer to this. I'd love someone to tell me. Has the Premier League ever seen a substitute come on for another substitute and then score the winning goal? Has that ever happened in the Premier League before?
Same game that a goal is scored in the first and last minute of the game.
Yeah. And also, if it has happened, has a substitute ever come on for a substitute and got an assist and a winning goal before? I'd love to know if that's ever happened because it felt historic. It felt momentous. And, hopefully we'll look back on it and it certainly will be.
Any answers to those questions? I've lost count now. Really, Mo threw at us there. Put them in the comments, please. If you haven't smashed the likes, please do so. It always helps the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Stop freeloading. Also, you could get Mo on at Arsenal Mo8 on Twitter, and you can also get him on his YouTube channel. And he does his 5 at 5. So keep an eye out for those. And Tom, you get at Tom Cantor Media or the Gooner Talk TV every day, 8 a.m. unless he's traveling to I don't know, do interviews. Arteta or Partey, he's in that ilk now. But anyway, Tom, anything you want to finish off with as well, mate?
Always a pleasure to join you boys and the chat books. It's it's great to see a lovely environment here when we're winning, and I think we're seeing that now every week, which is great. So yeah, do leave a like and subscribe to the Arsenal. We'll be back next Monday, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Next Monday. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I'm not doing anything again. I try and keep it free always, but sometimes just things crop up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll be fine. It's going to be like the Mrs. birthday or something. Now I've forgotten it. But...
No, you can't be doing that. Anyway, so hopefully we will all be back on Monday. Anyone going to the game on Thursday?
No, I wish.
Kai is going to be there, not me, unfortunately.
No?
I will be at the open training session on Wednesday, though. So I will know whether or not Trossard and Nketiah or Jesus has trained on Wednesday because I'll be there. So I'll be tweeting out the updates from that around.
Tune in to the Gooner Talk TV, 8 a.m. You can get all that information as well, right? On Thursday.
Indeed.
There you go, mate. Yeah.
Let's sort out a watch along.
Oh, mate, I'm terrible at watch-alongs. I can't do watch-alongs. And I'll be at the home game for the Europa. So if you guys are there, I'll see you there. Any of you guys in the chat, Tom will buy you a drink at the Tollington if he's there. Come along. Just mention the Arsenal Lounge to Tom, and he will buy you a drink. So on that note, it's been a pleasure seeing you guys, all you guys in the chat. Thank you for supporting us. And we're out of it. It's been the Arsenal Lounge. It's a happy lounge. Peace out.